circuit. It's such a physically demanding track, but they have done such a good job, as I said, in the repavement of the circuit. Lap records coming in 3 classes already. Are we going to see a new lap record in Medallia Superbikes? After what we've seen so far today, you've got to say yes, absolutely. We are definitely going to see things going on in terms of fast laps. This is going to be a race of 2 halves, also tyres as well. This is the first time that these riders will have actually done 20 laps consecutively. So tyre choice will also be very, very important, whether they go with the soft or the hard option, and what's the strategy when it comes to racing? Do we go like stink at the beginning, or do we try and conserve that tyre? Again, no one's done more than 12 or 13 laps in succession, so we're going to kind of go into a little bit of unknown territory when the lights go out. So, as I said, one of the responsibilities that I have, and it is a big honor, is, of course, to talk through our opening ceremonies, which is what we are about to do now. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monterey. Welcome to the WeatherTechRaceway Laguna Seca. It is time for opening ceremonies, Medallia Superbike race number 1. The colors presented by the Defense Language Institute Center Color Guard, and the national anthem will be sang by Julie Posey. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, around the circuit, please be upstanding for the national anthem of the United States of America.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Nicely done. What about it, WeatherTech Raceway? Normally we would make our way back onto the grid. We're not going to have much time to talk to people, but I just want to show you across here the fans in the grandstands. I am excited. The riders are ready. WeatherTech Raceway, if you're going to be on your feet cheering, come on, make some noise. Look at the excitement behind me here in the grandstand. We are getting ready. It is time to hand over to Jason Pridmore and to Greg White. It is Medallia Superbike, race 1 of 3. Take it away, boys.
Since MotoAmerica began in 2015, there's only been 3 Premier Class winners, and 2 of them are locked in a fierce battle for the #1 plate. Gagne trying to hold on to it, and Beaubier trying to get it back. All while Josh Herrin has kept himself in the fight, even with a few door dings. It's time to bring the fight to Central California and get this show on the road right now. It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. This round is MotoAmerica Superbike Speed Fest at Monterey from the famed WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, our 5th round of 9 for 2023, right here in Monterey, California. And we have Medallia Superbike on deck for race number 1. It is a 3 Medallia Superbike race weekend here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. And this racetrack is freshly paved, which brings up some issues on its own, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. Hi, everyone. I'm Greg White, standing alongside two-time world champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, here we are. This is the race. We're midway part of the season, and we have a great championship battle on deck for us.
Yeah, we're at the famed Laguna Seca on a perfect day with brand new pavement, Greg, and it's been fast at the front all weekend long. Different guys have shown their superiority, and we're going to see Cameron Beaubier starting from pole position.
Let's take you back to our last round at the Ridge Motorsports Park, and here's the highlights from those races.
Yeah, you can see here Gagne had turned back up underneath Herron and took the lead early in race 1 and began to pull away, as you can see. And then late in the race, Cam Beaubier was making a late race charge to catch up to the back of Gagne. He would fall over, end up 7th in that race. Gagne here going on and getting his 4th win of the season in race number 1. In race number 2, these two guys would duke it out. It was the same scenario. Gagne off to that jackrabbit start. Beaubier would dwindle that lead down, eventually go by with about 4 or 5 laps to go, and the Tyler's BMW rider would go on to win the 2nd race up at the Ridge.
Not too long ago, Cameron Beaubier talked to me about how it's a huge confidence booster for him to be able to get those results. But here's a look at the championship. So it's Gagne who's got 156 to 133 over Cameron Beaubier. But make no mistake, sitting there in 3rd place with 122 points and a win and 5 podiums is Josh Herron. And that is another rider who's been really impressive, because we saw that he was dinged up from his crashes, Jay. But for Josh Herron, he is the only rider in the last 4 races in this Medallia Superbike class to stand on a podium.
Yeah, we're kind of in a run of races that come really close together, and that accident at the Ridge definitely dinged up Josh Herron a little bit. I know his right foot's hurting, some shoulder injuries and things, so he's coming here and battling today a little bruised up, but he'll be up there for the fight, guaranteed.
Yeah, and for Josh Herron coming here, of course, he's still the record holder. All the way back in 2018, he has the fastest Superbike lap here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Now, he's definitely trying to shake off these bumps and bruises. And, Jay, there's a lot of racing to be done. 60 laps of competitive races. Laps to do here in racing conditions, 20 laps today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, this guy's going to tough it out. He's been in these kind of positions before. And I think it's a little unfortunate that we only had a week and a half or so. But had this race, I think if he'd have done it in race 2 there, or race 1 like he did, he might not have been as good in race 2 as he was at the Ridge. I think having that race back-to-back really quick helped him. And he's been able to recover a little bit. But if you watch him walk around, he's walking around pretty gingerly at the moment.
Yeah, well, the sun is shining here in California, and it's time for us to welcome in the 3rd member of our broadcast team, Hannah Lopa. Hannah, how's it going?
Greg, after a couple of weeks off here, returning to the racetrack a little bit earlier to test out this new surface, Josh Herron had some time to rest. But Josh, what's the prognosis for the foot and the ankle, and how is it feeling underneath you on the motorcycle this weekend so far?
Yeah, I got a fractured ankle and some torn stuff in the shoulder, so it hasn't been fun. You know, practice and qualifying, you don't get that adrenaline rush that you get during the race, so I'm really looking forward to, you know, getting a race under my belt where it kind of like, you know, basically covers up those the soreness. And yeah, hopefully get a good start right here. We're in a good spot. I'm glad that the 6th spot is at least on the inside of the track, so we got a good spot right here. And just hoping to get this Ducati V4 up front. It's really cool to see the crowd out here, talk to a lot of people out here, and I'm just having fun this weekend. So hopefully we have a good race, and yeah, I'll be happy at the end.
Best of luck, Josh. Guys.
All right, thanks, Hannah. And yeah, Jason, this is one of those racetracks that is physically demanding. Of course, a natural road course here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. An opportunity for us to take a look at the track, built in 1957.
Yeah, it's the famed Laguna Seca up over that turn 1. It'll be fun for the fans up on the hill watching them break down into turn 2. 2 flat corners, turns 3 and 4 before you start heading up the hill out of turn 5, all the way up to the famed corkscrew in turn 7 and 8, down to Rainy Corner, into fast turn 10, banked corner there, into turn 11. And like I've said, Greg, we've seen a lot of races be won or lost there in that last corner on your one to the checkered flag.
Of course, it's all to play for because it's a freshly paved racetrack, and there's a lot of talk about tire duration. How is it going to do here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca? Well, we are just about 4 minutes away from a race start, and Richie Escalante has been absolutely on fire. We'll give you the starting grid and get this race underway when we get back here. And keep an eye on the 99. He was fast yesterday. He got to get off, but he's going to bounce back. 7th on the grid today. Can he get a win? We look forward to finding out in a minute.
Good look there at Jake Gagne as he is getting ready to go out and do battle here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, starting from the middle of the front row. And I think one of the interesting things here, we've seen over the last couple of years, obviously, been a fairly dominant run by Yamaha. Obviously, the Ducati with Petrucci was able to get up there and mix it up and the like. But this year, look at that front row, Roger. BMW, Yamaha, Suzuki. We've got some serious parity in this championship right now.
Yeah, and then you just look at, the Ducati with Josh in 6 and how close that is. 4 different brands right there toward the front, and that's what we want to see. We want to see the parity, and it's been great. And I think Jake Gagne's got a lot to do with that. He's made all these other riders step up the last couple of years, and just working hard to try to close that gap. And Richie Escalante here is one of the guys that's kind of did that a lot this year. And so far, this weekend, man, he's been fast and really consistent. Had that little off toward the end of that second qualifier, but it was a small one. And I think today we're going to see Richie's full potential that we haven't seen in a Superbike race yet. We've seen him fast, but, qualifying on that front row is going to be huge for him.
And sometimes those little off, that's the indicator that, really pushing hard, starting to feel comfortable on the bike to push it at or maybe just beyond its limits. And he is certainly doing that. Josh Herron has been a warrior after that off, certainly, at the Ridge, and has come back and has done a really nice job. A little bit off it here with that 6th place here. And, to me, the unknown here could be P.J. Jacobsen, because he was so fast in that first qualifying session, then had that off early in the second one that planted him back a little bit. I think, he could make some moves up toward the front of this.
He was fast this morning as well. He just crashed halfway through that second qualifier and didn't have that opportunity to come in and throw that new Dunlop on the back like everybody else did.
Yep.
So, yeah, lost a lot of track time. But I seen his bike. His team had some work to do, but hopefully PJ not starting where he wants, but it's a long race.
It is a long race, and he'll be able to do something with it. And everybody has been impressed with Brandon Posh coming back in on the 96, stepping up to Superbikes off the injury and having a pretty solid run in practice and qualifying. So it is Medallia Superbikes coming up here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, race 1.
Medallia Superbike coverage is brought to you by Medallia, the pioneer in customer and employee experience. By Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. And by Geico Motorcycle. Visit geico.com to see how easy covering your ride can be.
Welcome back to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Well, Jason Pridmore, as we get set for Medallia Superbike race number 1, earlier in the weekend, these riders were on track and they went through what they call qualifying sessions. And so what happened there was they tried to set the fastest lap times possible at the end of the day yesterday and in the morning today, and that gave us our starting grid, and this is what it looks like. And yeah, he's continuing to roll. It's Cameron Beaubier on pole
with almost a new lap record here. Gagne 2nd, Escalante 3rd. Really good stuff out of Richie Escalante. Cam Peterson, Matthew Scholz, small tip over this morning. He's going to line up 5th next to Josh Herron. Then we have P.J. Jacobsen, Corey Alexander, and Brandon Posh, now with the M4 X-Star Suzuki team. Bobby Fong, Hayden Gillum, and Ashton Yates. And then a little further back, got Flinders De Silva, Nolan Lampkin, and Danilo Lewis filling out our grid.
So you get to watch Brandon Posh's debut on a factory Suzuki Superbike. And Posh coming off of injury from motocross crash he had, Jason, where he had a back injury, and he said he's really sore from the riding he's done. He's going to have to ride himself into fitness this season. But so far, so good for Brandon Posh. He's enjoying his time on that Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki. 20 laps on deck for Medallia Superbike race number 1. The grid is formed up. So now it'll be focus on the top of the hill underneath the Mission Bridge. A brand new bridge built here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. And that's going to be the first. And we're away. And it looks like Cameron Beaubier got a good launch, but position on the racetrack could be number 1. Look at Cameron Peterson around the outside on the freshly progressive Yamaha, and the South African will lead us down into turn number 2.
Cam Beaubier got a tremendous launch, and it was almost like he missed a gear. Both the attack backs. Oh, big crash!
Big crash!
It looks like Cam Beaubier and Cam Peterson.
Indeed, it is, and it looks like Cameron Beaubier took a big hit. So Cameron Peterson to Cam Beaubier asking if he's okay. Boy, that was something else. That leads the number 1 out front. And there's Josh Herron, number 2 on the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati Panigale V4R.
And I don't know what happened there, but generally if a rider, if Cam led through turn 2, he may have high-sided on the exit, and Beaubier might have just been to the right of him. We'll see here in a replay here. You'll see Cam Peterson's leading. Yeah, he loses the rear, which tucks the front. And then Beaubier had nowhere to go, and he gets just caught up in it. And that's all that happened. We have a red flag, Greg.
As we would expect, red flag because of that incident. Riders will now head back as Cam Peterson tries to get his bike up and going.
And I remember you talking to me earlier this morning about these riders talking about how much grip there is. And if you watch, and the replay was difficult for me to see, but it almost looks like Cam Peterson has so much grip that it lifts the front wheel of the bike just up in the air at an angle, and that's going to make the front tuck. Because if you look at the way he went down pretty soft. And then, of course, Beaubier was right there behind him.
All right, Jay, let's take another look at it. And from what the riders are telling me, that's exactly what it is.
So you can see here he's leaned over and he's going to start getting on the gas. It moves out from underneath him. He just lost the rear a little bit, and that was enough to take some weight off of the front as well. And he tucks the front, and poor Beaubier had nowhere to go.
Down he goes, and looking at Beaubier hit the deck too. Looked like there was decent enough separation with the bike, but Cameron Beaubier took a couple of big tumbles. Of course, a recent father, Cameron Beaubier, his son Brody is here at a month-and-a-half old. His first trip outside the house. Not the way to start that, watching his dad race this one, but it's back to the pits we go. No tire changes allowed, but you can make all the other adjustments. So we'll step away. When we come back, we'll get this red flag sorted out in a moment.
So a red flag here at WeatherTech Raceway on the opening lap. Cam Peterson and Cam Beaubier going down. We're looking at live pictures. Jake Gagne now back in the pits. There will be a short delay, 5 minutes, I believe, until the pit lane opens. And Greg Creamer and Roger Hayden up there in the commentary box. An exciting start to the race, but not quite the excitement that we were expecting.
No, not at all, and it was just unfortunate. It was a monster launch by Cam Peterson and around the outside, and as they were talking about, it looked like as he was going to throttle, it just lifted the front, down he went, and I mean, Cameron Beaubier, there's nothing he could do.
Yeah, Cam had nowhere to go, with Cam Peterson sliding out there right in front of him and toward the edge of the track. There was nowhere, just ran out of real estate, and unfortunately for Cam Beaubier, that wasn't his fault, but, you can see it here. The front guy on the screen. See how the rear kind of comes around and then it hooks up, and there goes the front. And that was a big hit by Cam Beaubier. Luckily he was up and okay, and unfortunately for him, his bike took a big hit as well. So in MotoAmerica we have a one bike rule, and he doesn't have another bike back at the pit that he can run and jump on.
See this little different angle here, and I mean, Beaubier was still tipped over a little bit, and that may have mitigated things as it was sort of a glancing blow instead of hitting him straight up. But nonetheless, it was a big off. We saw Cameron Peterson get up, go to the bike. I think he had a flat rear tire. That Dunlop got punctured, but he immediately got up and rode it back. But when he first stood up, he had his hands up in the air like, I have no idea what happened. Then he looked over, saw Beaubier down, and ran over to him and making sure he's okay. And Beaubier, obviously, pretty tender standing up there. Yeah,
you can just see him limping off like that. And it was a mistake. It's racing, and you can see Cam there saying, hey, it's okay. I understand. It wasn't anything dirty or on purpose. It's just him at the start of a superbike race trying to get going and getting up to speed really quick.
And the problem is potentially for Beaubier there, if that bike's broken and if he can't get that back into the pits, he's done.
Yeah, I don't think Cam's getting back in this race unless this is a really, really long red flag where they can work on that bike for a while. And I don't think it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of work to do, and I don't think they're going to have time. And for him, luckily, there's 2 races tomorrow that he can maybe try to make up those points, but that's racing and that's the way it goes, and unfortunately for him.
Well, we talked about it. You got 3 races on a weekend. It can be a turning point in terms of helping you gain spots in the championship or potentially be costly. And the rebound is going to be all about how this Tyler Cycle Racing team can rebound for the double header tomorrow. So, well, we're going to head back over to the booth with Greg White and Jason Pridmore.
We're back at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca here in Monterey, California. Under red flag conditions after we got a couple turns in Medallia Superbike race number 1. An incident involving Cameron Peterson and Cameron Beaubier. Here are the rules, Jason Pridmore. With less than 3 laps completed, original grid and all riders may restart if they're medically fit.
Yeah, we saw Cam Peterson obviously try to get on that bike. It looked like it had a flat tire, so I'm looking down there to see if they're working on it. I don't see his bike down there.
Yeah, and Cameron Beaubier's bike looked like it got pushed behind the wall, so we can't see him starting. It's a single bike rule here in MotoAmerica. So unless you have to finish the race on the bike you started on. So that's kind of the situation. And there's Cameron Peterson going, and Cameron Beaubier getting into Dan Organo's car. Let's get right down to Hannah. Hannah, what do you know about the incident?
Well, as you mentioned, Cam Peterson has not made his way back to pit lane, as you just saw. But I checked in with Jake Gagne. He had a front row seat to what happened out there, and he said to me, you know, I think because it's windy, I don't know if you can tell with the flags blowing in the background. It is quite windy out here. He thinks that it maybe cooled down the tires just sitting on the grid early on there, and so it's a little bit sketchy. They have to be a little bit more tentative, and he thinks that perhaps that was the issue.
It's really funny because it's actually a beautiful day here. We've had the normal fog layer that we have in the mornings, the mist, and you can see that wind that Jake Gagne is talking about. It is cool, even though it's a nice day. It's a little chilly out there, so there could be some warrant to that as far as the temperature in the tires.
Now you can really see that the wind is blowing here, and it's been like this since we've been here in beautiful Monterey, California. Back to the start of the race, Jason, and of course we're going to be seeing the crash here. So this is what the start looked like. And Jay, you and I had to talk about it while we were in break. You look at Cameron Beaubier, the number 6 bike out there in the Tyler Cycle, and he just got kind of swallowed up by a pair of Yamahas there.
It was almost like his first gear's a little bit taller, and this is an uphill start. And then, of course, the incident that has brought us to this red flag. Hate seeing this. Really hate seeing this from a fan's point of view because we've got such a good championship race. And one of our contenders there being Cam Beaubier, getting caught up in something with Cam Peterson. You know, no fault. You can see both these guys have a lot of respect for each other. And Cam was obviously very worried about Beaubier from the start in there. Getting back out now on the warm-up lap. Obviously, we saw the 2 riders involved getting in a car, so they're not going to be back in this race. And, you know, that's just a shame to see that happen, especially right off the bat, Greg. To see that happen off the bat like that's a real bummer.
And, of course, we really have to keep the championship in mind.
Oh, this is a concern. So it looks like the brakes are not, it almost sounds like the brakes are staying locked on for Escalante. This is a guy that's starting from the front row right now.
Okay, so it looks like he might have sorted it out, although he has a long look at it.
It's never a good feeling when you feel something going on with your brakes, you know, and yeah, it still doesn't look right, doesn't seem right. You can hear it as well. He's got the bike stopped still at pit lane at the end. He's like, you see the red flag stopped him from going out, so he actually missed the siding lap here as Beaubier and Cam Peterson both get out of the car and make their way to their crew.
A thumbs up to the crowd sitting in the grandstands on the front straightaway. So this is a big deal right here, Jason.
Big deal, because this guy has been on fire this weekend, Greg. He has been riding so well. The whole Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki team, and, you know, with Chris Orich and all of them, they've put together a bike here, and they've continued to work hard to get the 54 up at the front, and he has been. And I mean, Greg, he only qualified 3/10 off pole position. So crew members running up to Richie right now to kind of talk to him about this. These guys will come around. I believe it'll be like a quick start, Greg, where they'll come to the grid And there'll be a member from each team out there guiding their rider to their grid spot. Obviously, Escalante isn't out there. And then these guys are going to get sent off for another warm-up lap. So they're going to try to get a little bit more heat in those tires. You can see Escalante in the top left part of our screen there, sitting there still.
So this is a quick start procedure in that they get a warm-up lap, and then there's one crew member allowed to be in their grid position just to remind them where they are. And the grid is getting cleared now. They'll do a warm-up lap, we'll re-grid, and then we'll get things going. It's been reduced by a single lap, so it's 19 laps as Escalante still having a look at something that's bothering him on the motorcycle.
Yeah, and the thing is that when you just don't know, it's hard to get yourself to just send it off into the first turn. Now, the other thing here, Greg, is he's going to have to come from the last row of our grid as well, I believe. He's going to have to come from the back. So the problem is the warm-up lap here. This lap for Richie Escalante is going to be so key and crucial to see if he's even able to get the bike to go around. So have another look at our starting grid here. As you see, Gagne and Skoltz and Herron leading them through turn 3. We're obviously going to be without Bobier and on the start. We see Gagne and Richie Escalante. Escalante will be at the back of the grid. Cam Peterson also will not be at the start. Skoltz and Herron. So it's going to look a little barren up in the first 2 rows there, Greg. And then we got PJ Jacobson again, Alexander, Posh, Fong, Gillum, Yates, Flinders, De Silva, Lampkin, and Danilo Lewis. And I'm just looking did you see if Richie actually got out?
Escalante.
Yeah,
so
it looks like he got out there.
Jason mentioned that, so he's going to have to start from the back row of the grid, so he would be gridded up next to Danilo Lewis on that back row.
This might be him here. No, that's Lewis coming up. I know he went out because I'm looking out the window and I don't see him, so I know he's somewhere out there testing this thing. You'll see there's Lewis coming through. Escalante will be after that.
So warm-up lap, 19 laps now for Medallia Superbike race number 1. We're without Cameron Bobier, second in the points, and without Cameron Peterson. Hannah, what's going on with Escalante?
I checked in with Frank Aragaki, his crew chief, and he told me that it looks like the tire warmer cover may have possibly melted to the rotor. So they're not 100% sure on that. It's looking a little bit melted from what they can see on their end of things. So it's just a matter of seeing how Richie will be able to do in this opening lap here.
And here's really the thing, Hannah, thanks for that, is he's going to have to just see, he's going to be put to the back of the grid. He's going to be, you can see it's just something's not right. But he made it around for that lap, Greg, and you can see, look, that thing's locked up. That thing is locked up as he's leaving.
So hopefully the heat generated from these brakes will melt the material on the brake rotors. I don't like saying that, but
he's going to have to be really careful the first few laps, and if nothing else, if it does clear up, that problem does, he needs the data of this 19 laps so that when they go into tomorrow's race, they have that. But this guy can make a charge if that brake problem does clear up, and there's your first 2 rows right now.
Gagne all by himself as the lights get ready to go off. Medallia Superbike race number 1 is underway on our second start. And Jake Gagne's got clear racetrack ahead of him. And look at the start from Josh Herron, number 2 on that Ducati. Man, that thing gets off the line well. Matthew Skoltz, Westby Racing, slots into 3rd spot. And it looks like PJ Jacobson on the Tytler Cycle BMW in 4th.
Richie Escalante works himself all the way up through up to 7th place right off the bat. So Richie Escalante made a good start. You see him back there on the 54. He got up underneath Corey Alexander in turn 3. And now he is going to try to get that. I mean, Greg, he's right on the back of the lead group. So that's really good for Richie as he looks to go up underneath Bobby Fong. Gagne leading the way. Herron right on the back with Skoltz right there, and PJ Jacobson. And how about Brandon Posh? Looks like Brandon's in 5th.
So Jay, looking at the Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki team, Brandon Posh and Escalante. So Escalante is going to make that move into 5th spot. But now it becomes a chess game. The question is that everybody had is, what is the pace going to be at the front? With 19 laps in this race, the question is the durability of the front tire. Rear grip has been exceptional, Jason. We talked about it as the red flag was going on here at the freshly paved WeatherTechRaceway Laguna Seca. And so it's a matter of the front tire. Is it going to last the entire race? So how quick is Jake Gagne going to lead this field We come across the line from a dead stop. It's a 1:25.390.
That is fast. And, you know, again, we've seen Gagne be able to jump out in front over the last few years. These guys are all getting a lot better now on their first couple laps. As you see, Herron, who we talked about at the top of our show, isn't really riding at all fully fit, a little bit beat up, and he's gnawing on the back of that number 1 right now. Matthew Skultz here also with a good start, putting himself into that 3rd place spot. We saw him this morning putting a good qualifying run and then sliding off ever so easy up at the top of the corkscrew. PJ Jacobsen there running 4th on the other Tytler's bike, another Tytler's entry, and Escalante, I think, Greg, you know, he's done such a nice job just putting himself where he's at early in this race. Now it's just going to get confidence building up, knowing that that brake problem isn't even a problem anymore, and he'll be able to get to the racecraft we know Richie Escalante has.
And in talking to a lot of these Medallia Superbike riders, one of the talking points was because there's so much grip in this asphalt coming here to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, that riding a Superbike is slightly different. When I talked to Jake Gagne about it, he said, look, this rides more like a 600 or a Supersport type track than it does Superbike, meaning there's so much grip and you can carry so much lean angle. You want to be on the edge of the tire and roll through the corners more than just simply accelerate through them.
Yeah, and I know what he means by that too, and you can see PJ Jacobsen trying to take the long route around the outside of Matthew Skultz to go over turn 1. What Gagne means by that is you can carry so much more speed than you normally can, so it makes it feel like the bike is smaller underneath you, and you know, as if you're riding a 600 or something smaller. So these guys can enter the corners faster than they could before probably, and let go of that lever and still have all that grip.
Now what you saw right there was Matthew Skultz getting a little loose in the rear end of the motorcycle, and that's been actually a concern of the riders that are ahead of him, is there is so much grip on the rear, they're not able to rotate the bike mid-corner to get it to turn like they usually can because of these 220 horsepower Medallia Superbikes. Battle for 3rd between 11 Matthew Skultz, 99 PJ Jacobsen, and Richie Escalante right there in the mix.
It's a lot of movement early though for Skultz, and I saw that out of 3 or 4 corners now where his bike is definitely moving maybe a little bit more aggressively than some of the other bikes around. Hannah?
Well, back to what Greg was saying just about getting the bike turned. When I talked to Matthew Skultz, he said he does feel like he has to ride differently than he normally would. You have to almost slow sooner and then gas through the corner in order to get the bike turned the way you want to, because the rear grip is just so good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you want the rear grip to be good. These guys, a lot of them like to steer the bike with that throttle, and you see PJ Jacobsen taking another big run, and he's going to go up the outside of Matthew Skultz. That's just going to be a really nice run for the 99 out of turn 11. Has a lot of acceleration, does that BMW, and he runs out a little bit wide, but he's going to get it cut back, and now he's going to put his head down to see if he can do anything about that. What is it, Greg? 2.3 second gap up to Gagne, 1.6 to Herron. So PJ Jacobsen's been fast. We saw him really good all year long. The Ridge was a little bit of a bogey track for PJ, to his own admission. It's not his favorite place in the world, but he came here to WeatherTech Laguna Seca Raceway, got right back down to business, and was quickest yesterday in our morning session.
He certainly was, although he did have an incident earlier on today. But here's a look at the pass as PJ, that's a line that he actually likes if you watch all the time, and he's using his size and the power of that BMW M1000RR to go by the Yamaha of Skultz. So PJ looking good, Jay, and he's been here quite a bit. He was here actually when he was racing World Superbike as well.
Yep, and you know, obviously a lot of experience there for PJ Jacobsen in World Superbike. We've seen him in World Supersport winning races. We've seen him in BSB, so he's been around the world and seen a lot of things, and he's you know, he's continuing to push this forward. He rode very well last year and earned this shot to come back on this Tytler's BMW, and he's done a nice job.
So far, Jason, the fastest lap of the race is last time by Jake Gagne, a 1:23.502. The race record around WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is a 1:23.185 back in 2020 by Cameron Beaubier. So Gagne continuously pushing. He's now got a 1.1 second lead over Josh Herron. Hannah?
Talking about what you were talking about with PJ Jacobsen, Greg, you know, he did have that tip over this morning, and he was feeling a little bit discouraged when I talked to him, especially after having such good sessions yesterday and getting some work done on Thursday ahead of the race weekend. So, you know, I asked him, how do you maintain positivity through this? And he said, really, I just need to get on the bike, and I know that I'll feel a lot better once I'm able to crack that throttle open and do what I know how to do.
Last time by, a 124.3 for PJ Jacobsen, the number 99. Josh Herrin, who's ahead of him, a 124 flat. So now the difference is 2 seconds total, Jason. But you have to wonder, as the laps continue to wind down for Josh Herrin, who sits in second place, how's the physicality going to be for him? But he's in a good spot. He's kind of got a good gap between Gagne and PJ Jacobsen does the number 2.
Yeah, how will his endurance be? And I thought Herrin said something that was pretty poignant on the grid. You know, your adrenaline levels don't really get up as much for practice and qualifying. You know, maybe one lap in qualifying, you're going to push that and you're going to feel that adrenaline. But it's funny what it does, how it takes some of that pain away. But we'll start to look, Greg, because it is 1.9. PJ Jacobsen was a little bit quicker, so we're going to have to start to think about the endurance for Josh Herrin and how that pain's going to go. Now, Matthew Schultz has settled in pretty nicely here behind PJ Jacobsen. All 3 of the riders in 3rd, 4th, 5th set their personal best laps on this last lap. So it looked to me like Richie Escalante was lining something up a lap or so ago on Matthew Schultz heading up into the corkscrew, but you can see Matthew now has his head looking forward. He's starting to kind of pull away from Escalante ever so slightly. In other words, he's creating a little bit of a gap there to where it'll be a lot harder for Escalante to do anything up at the corkscrew, because he was really close with him a couple of laps ago. Hannah.
Interestingly enough, Richie Escalante came to Laguna Seca for the first time in 2007 to watch MotoGP, so he recalls watching Valentino Rossi and Casey Stoner turn laps here when he was just 12 years old. And he was so surprised at the elevation change in the iconic corkscrew, and now he said he's so comfortable at this racetrack, he kind of thinks nothing of it. He did get a podium here in the Supersport class in 19, 20, and 21, but he said this is the only circuit on the calendar that he has not won at, and we know after last round he's counting that number of podiums since the last time he stood up there, so he's working hard to try and make it happen today.
Well, Jay, we talk about the mental game here in road racing, period, motorcycle road racing, and when you're Richie Escalante, who makes a mistake going down into turn number 2,
that's a weird one.
Looked like he was trying to get it back in gear or
messing with
something.
the throttle. Yeah, it looked like he caught a false neutral. He really drew up on the back of him there.
He certainly did. But Jay, Escalante for a couple of years was just he just kept winning and winning and winning and winning. And now as he transitions in his second year at Medallia Superbike, he's just dying to get back up there. And he's been showing great strides lately. Unfortunately, a little miscue there, and Escalante is going to be shuffled back another second or two for the battle for the podium. Gagne sets a fastest lap of the race 1 lap ago, a 1:23.466. He just went 1:23.675. There's the number 1 plate on that fresh and lean progressive Yamaha. And Jay, it's been very interesting because nobody on the grid that I talked to has done 19 laps in a row on a front tire, and that's really going to be the issue. Now, I will say this, considering what happened this week leading up to this race, when there was an incident here at WeatherTechRaceway Laguna Seca with some cars on Friday, everybody was kind of panicked about what's the condition of the racetrack. So Dunlop decided on Tuesday, or Monday really, we're going to put bikes on track on Tuesday. And they were able to do that as a quick test. And then they were able to get more riders out on the track on Thursday before everything started on Friday. And in speaking with Dunlop, they were extremely happy with the choice of tires that they ended up bringing. What you see here is a combination of the R7 and the R8, which are their medium hard and hardest compounds that they have available. So a lot of riders in this class running the R7 front, and quite a few, not Richie Escalante, he chose the R7 rear, but this rider right here has the R8 rear, or the hardest compound available.
Yeah, and I think that it was good that MotoAmerica got together with Dunlop, and they were allowing that test to happen on Tuesday for, I believe there was 8 riders, and then Thursday, Supersport and Superbike got an opportunity to send multiple riders out. Like anybody that was kind of here could go out and test this new race surface and facility. And when you think about it, this is kind of our 3rd track this year that we've gone to where we've had new surfaces that we've had to deal with. And so Dunlop is constantly getting put to the test on that. And they just didn't have the data. As you can see, this battle for third is continuing to squeeze itself a little bit closer. It got down to 1.7 between PJ and Herrin. It went back to 1.9 last lap. So we're going to have a look at this lap when they go through. 23.594 for Gagne, 24.1 for Herrin, 23.9, 4 flats for the two guys behind PJ. So they are doing their best to try to close this gap down to Herrin. And you can see there's the red bike of Josh Herrin just up in front of PJ Jacobson. We're not even halfway done with this race yet, as you can see on our lap counter. And PJ is going to continue to push forward here to try to catch up to that Ducati. And he's bringing Scholze along with him.
For Josh Herrin, the list of injuries is pretty long after his get off at the Ridge, right ankle. But the big deal, too, is not just the ankle, Jay. It's the fact that his left arm, he's having a really hard time with his left arm. They believe it's part of rotator cuff and left wrist. And so he's literally having to adjust his body when he goes into hard braking corners. He's like, with his left arm, instead of having his elbows bent and create a little bit of relaxed braking, he's having to stiffen that left arm out. And he says it's really affecting the way he's riding. But Herrin right now doing a good job soldiering on and holding that gap to about 1.9 to 1.6. Right at the moment, 1.8.
Yeah, what I was trying to say in our stand-up at the beginning was, had that accident been on Friday, by Sunday he would have been in a lot of pain at the Ridge. But it happened Saturday morning. He was right on the bike Saturday afternoon, got on the podium at the Ridge Saturday, had one night to sleep on it. And you know how it is. It's usually 2, 3, 4, 5 days when you have an accident like the one he had barreling through the gravel that Josh Herrin's going to feel it 4 or 5 days later. Your body gets tightened up. It's very important to stay loose, and the work that he had to put in over the last week and a half just to be ready for Laguna Seca was probably pretty intense. Right now he's holding these guys at bay. He runs the same lap times, 24.2s for everybody except for Escalante, who went 24.1. Haven't seen another mistake from Richie that we saw him just now, so that maybe it was just a false neutral that the 54 kicked it into a couple of laps ago.
To reset your order, left part of your screen, Medallia Superbike race number 1 of 3 this weekend here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It's Gagne, Herrin, and then PJ Jacobson in third with Matthew Scholze right on his tail. Richie Escalante just off there in 5th. Brandon Posh in his factory Suzuki debut on that Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki, a great position in 6th. Bobby Fong in 7th, Hayden Gillum, Corey Alexander, Max Flinders, Nolan Lampkin. You see the little red chiclet there to the right of his name. That indicates that he's involved in the MotoAmerica Superbike Cup class. Of course, our Stock 1000 not here this weekend, so we don't have the usual fare of Stock 1000 racers that compete in this class. Yates in 12th, that's Ashton, and then Gabriel Da Silva in 13th place. Danilo Lewis out of this race and in the pits. And of course, if you're just joining us, an incident on the first race, first lap, took out Cameron Beaubier and Cameron Peterson when Cameron Peterson, leading the race, crashed and unfortunately collected Cameron Beaubier, who was close.
This is a good look at Brandon Posh. Nice to see that he has a ride. I believe it's for the rest of the year.
Correct.
And Brandon Posh is going to get some Superbike experience. And what he's got to do, Greg, I mean, you got to remember, as you said earlier, he's coming back from a pretty big injury. And he hasn't done a lot of racing this year. After Daytona, he got hurt his back. I think he broke his back. And so he's been rehabbing a lot. He gets the phone call. And this is a ride that is actually deserved. I mean, Brandon Posh has been putting a lot of hours in for a lot of years, and this is going to be a good opportunity for him to get with a great team.
And he's holding off right now the number 50 of Bobby Fong on that Wrench Motorcycles, Hannah.
He is, and he didn't have a lot of expectation for himself heading into the weekend, but being here at the tire test on Tuesday, and then again at the session on Thursday, he was able to get in some laps, get acquainted with this motorcycle, give it a good shakedown, and definitely gave him a really strong jumping off point for the weekend. He said every session out, he's going faster and faster. It's just a matter of learning how much he can trust the electronics and trust this motorcycle that's underneath him, but he's really happy to be communicating with the team. Everyone's getting along really well. I talked to him about his back, and he said he is still a little uncomfortable here and there, so he's resting and laying down as much as he can whenever he can, but I'm sure he'll be very happy with his performance today.
And of course, this Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki, Jason, is a GSX-R 1000 based off the street bike, the same motorcycle you can buy off the showroom floor. And in that Stock 1000 class, you have to keep the ergonomics relatively stock in terms of the seats narrower and the tank is stock. And
one thing Posh said, he's a much taller rider. He's coming in at about 6 feet tall. He said he loves this Superbike because it's got a wider saddle and a wider tank, and so he's able to use a lot of his leg to grip the tank and turn the motorcycle, and so he's getting used to it. And you know what, Jason, if he can get 19 laps under the books today and finish the next 2 races, valuable information for his first outing.
That's the biggest thing. He's just got to get a bunch of laps under his belt. He doesn't have race laps, and so for him, that's going to be key. These guys still 1.6 behind this man here, number 2, Josh Herrin, PJ Jacobsen. They're all in the 24s. Our leader at the front, Gagne, still circulating in the minute 23s, but 24.2, 24.0, 24.2 for Herrin, Jacobsen, Skoltz, and Escalante. So they're all doing relatively the exact same times from 2nd back to 5th.
And having the conversations I had with the front runners, Gagne, Herrin, Escalante, Posh, a lot of the riders, Cameron Bobier, who's not in this one, Cameron Peterson. The key to this race, they thought, was going to be being as smooth as you possibly can to see what the tires are going to be like towards the end. The good news is at the moment, we do have sun out, and as the sun is out and it adds heat to this track, Jason, it benefits those Dunlop tires. So what we haven't seen necessarily is the race action that you normally would get. So
That's exactly right.
So here we go. We got about 7.5 laps to go. Medallia Superbike race number 1 with Jake Gagne out front. Josh Herrin, PJ Jacobsen, and Matthew Skoltz. And Jay, this is the thing, as Matthew Skoltz closes down on PJ Jacobsen, the question is going to be, how aggressive is Skoltz going to get in this part with 7 laps to go? Now we start to get into unknown territory in terms of what is the front tire going to do. And boy, you can see how that BMW can accelerate out of turn number 6 and head up towards the corkscrew. That thing comes off the corner like a rocket ship.
Yeah, yesterday when I was out watching what you're saying right now about the BMW, I was watching the bike coming out of turn 3, going up underneath the bridge, headed towards turn 4, and you could see a noticeable difference between the BMWs. It looks like Matthews getting ready to pounce here on PJ as they head towards turn 11.
Here comes Matthew Skoltz under braking into the final corner. Can he get it done? He'll pull the trigger on his Yamaha R1, that Westby Racing motorcycle, but here comes PJ Jacobsen up the inside using the horsepower of that M1000RR. Is Skoltz going to take a shot down the hill? No, PJ sends it sideways. And Jay, that may be our first indicator. Whoa, I thought
he was going to do it.
Me too.
I was the same way. I thought PJ was going to get that bike, run it out a little wide, and look what it's going to do, though. It's going to start bringing Escalante into the fold, isn't it?
Here comes Richie Escalante. And also, this is going to give Josh Herrin a little bit of breathing room.
I'm wondering if you look here, very classic move down the inside of turn 11. Matthew's going to get in there a little bit tighter, get the acceleration out. PJ's one of our smaller guys that you've seen. He's on arguably the fastest motorcycle out there, so that's going to help him turn it back up underneath that Yamaha and then get back past him as they headed out of turn 11. But Matthew can see that they're actually catching Josh Herrin, so he might want to get to PJ before PJ gets to Herrin.
Into the corkscrew they go. You can see Herrin flashing by, so it has closed down to just a second as Josh Herrin doing everything he can to hold on to this one. But in terms of the front end confidence, it looks like Matthew Skoltz has more of it than PJ Jacobsen does. As you can see that Matthew's carrying more speed exiting the corner. But Jay, when you have a BMW M1000R underneath you, you don't have to carry as much corner speed as some of the other bikes.
No, you can definitely see that thing shoot off the corners. Like you said a couple of laps ago, Richie Escalante is now on the back of Matthew Skoltz, but you can see, Greg, they've really closed this gap down. It's 1.1 now from Josh Herrin back to PJ Jacobsen. So this is going to be a tight battle for our final 2 podium spots.
Wow, just like that, Matthew Skoltz, number 11, Westby Racing Yamaha, looked to be aggressive as he passed Tyler Cycles, number 99, PJ Jacobsen. But then all of a sudden, here's a Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki of Richie Escalante, who got up alongside him, heading down into turn number 2. So all of a sudden, for a couple turns ago, it looked like maybe Matthew Skoltz was looking vulnerable. But I think, Jason, this is the right move for these 3 riders. Just settle into a rhythm. Don't give Herrin another opportunity to get another gap, as we have about 4.5 laps to go in Medallia Superbike race number 1.
Yeah, and as I'm looking at our split times, they are running identical. First splits for all these guys, second splits are all identical. Herrin pulls out 2/10 in the third split over PJ Jacobsen. So Herrin obviously has got the message on his board that that gap is getting closer. And it looks like down the bottom part of the track is where these guys are kind of doing their damage on Josh, and that's probably going to be one of the more physical spots. From the top of the corkscrew all the way down to 11, there's a lot of changing of your body position from side to side all the way down that hill, and that might be where Josh is just a little uncomfortable. As you see, PJ's got that BMW backed in again, but he's able to get that corner squared up and get off the edge of the tire early. And if anything, that little shot that Matthew took has a little fire under the 99, and he's starting to pull away just ever so slightly.
And we're keeping an eye on lap times. Yeah, Jay, you mentioned that PJ Jacobsen just goes his personal best in sector number 1. This track broken up into multiple sectors, and we can see those times. So PJ Jacobsen just goes 21.866. Josh Herrin did a 21.856, so they match times, but PJ definitely pushing the issue. There's the 99 of Jacobsen. Of course, last year on the Tytler's Cycles team, ended up the season with a couple of podiums that earned him a ride back on the team for 2023.
And this particular part is where PJ is extremely fast. From the exit of the corkscrew down into Rainy Corner where you see Herrin at now. And again, this is the spots where Josh is going to be much more physical on the bike than anywhere else. And we'll see PJ, he was just a little under a second behind him at the end of the last lap, and it almost looks a little bit closer now. So Herrin, though, Greg, in the third split, yeah, just a tenth slower than PJ. So PJ's going to come across 24 flat to 24.2, so he's just chipping away at him.
Josh Herrin trying to keep his podium streak alive, trying to extend it to 5 on the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati Panigale V4R. Of course, Paolo Ciabatti from Ducati Corsa, the sporting director, is here in attendance watching this with this Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati team. The only event he's going to be able to make it to, of course, with Paolo Ciabatti in his schedule in MotoGP and World Superbike. This was the only event he could come to this year. Last year it was Brainerd, Minnesota. He's happy to be back here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca and talking to Paolo. He's got a lot of memories here over the years and over the different racing disciplines that have blessed this famous race course.
You see Richie Escalante's fallen off the back of these three a little bit. Now, these three are going to get really close now with about 2.5 laps to go. Expect PJ to kind of be on the back by the time they get up into the corkscrew on the next lap. The 99 could be lining up Josh Herrin for something to happen here. Matthew Schultz! Big high side for Matthew Schultz as they come down through Rainy Corner.
And that was after he set the fastest sector time of the race in sector number 3. And Matthew Schultz down, and that was a hard hit.
That was a big crash.
Oh, for the number 11. He was trying to close that gap to PJ Jacobsen, but Schultz down as Josh Herrin still holding on as PJ's getting closer and closer. And Herrin right now is just watching those laps tick away. Red flag is out. So the red flag for Medallia Superbike race number 1, the second one. As we take a look at the replay, Jay.
Yeah, you're going to see the rear end. He just gets out a little wide. He's just a little bit wider than we've seen him in other laps. He just gets out there probably in a spot where we haven't seen a lot of rubber laid down just yet on this new surface. And you can see there's PJ, and you can see how much further out Matthew is than PJ. So he loses the rear end of the bike, and it just snaps him up over the high side. It's kind of crash we don't see very often anymore, but it does happen. And you see Matthew is up now.
Yeah, it's good to see him up.
His bike. Yes, absolutely.
Good to see him up, and we're, of course, looking to see if he's working the digits a little bit, his arms or anything, but he looks like he's okay. His safety gear doing the job. And, of course, that will be the end of Medallia Superbike race number 1. And there's your winner, number 1, Jake Gagne. And this rider grabbing a heap of points. Here's a look at the race pace, Jay, and it was just an impressive run of mid to low 23s right there at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, and you can see, Greg, even late, like lap 12, he's still in the 23s, 24 flat on his last lap actually through on lap 15. So those times look like they were coming fairly easy for Jake Gagne.
So not the full 20 laps that everyone wanted. However, a lot of valuable data for those people that finished this race. When we come back, we'll talk to our race winner and find out how it went for him.
Well, Jake Gagne, looks over at Matt Scholz, and Matthew gives him a wave, says, I'm okay, so Jake will feel a lot better about that. This is not the way you ever want to win a race, but if you're looking at a championship, you will take every win, you will take every point. And we just saw that display of his lap times. One thing Gagne has proven is he's almost metronomic, isn't he? And he just clicks off those times.
And I was just watching the lap times of the race, 23.4, 23.5.
Yeah.
Even when he was pulling away by big chunks, he was still just so consistent. And then he builds a pretty good lap and he backs it off, or a pretty good gap, and backs it off a little bit. And it's just glad to see Matt getting the ride back in. That was a big one, right there, rainy curve, high side in the Superbike there is a big one.
Yeah.
And, I could feel it setting here.
Yeah, exactly. Josh Herrin, toughing it out in second. And, one of the things that they say about the really solid athletes, the great athletes, is sometimes when you have an injury, to get through it, whether it's in football, hockey, whatever, any kind of a sport, is sometimes to get through that, you almost go to a different level sometimes. And, Herrin just was really riding smart out there. He knew he didn't have anything for Jake, and he knew he had enough in hand. You were talking about it during the race. You were watching the times. He put in a fast one to gap a little bit, then he'd ease off a little bit.
And he was, something we call like pitboard watching. He was too far behind Jake to catch him, knew he didn't have his pace, so he was just managing the gap behind. And PJ was coming, but I think Josh was just going the pace, knowing a couple tenths a lap.
Yep.
By the time he's there, the race is going to be over. And one thing, too, different is for PJ, catching Josh Herrin and passing him is two different things. And for the
Totally.
But that was a great ride for PJ and that crew, because we seen the video of his crash this morning, and his bike flipped a lot, and that crew had a lot of work to do. And we seen them under that red flag working on his bike.
Feverishly.
So,
yeah. So that red flag may have been really key for him to get that bike tweaked, because they didn't, other than the sighting lap, really didn't get any time after that crash. So that was big. Richie Escalante, you were talking about it. You were surprised. He caught that group, got into the top 5 fast, and you thought, well, he should be able to maybe get through these guys, and he just sort of stalled a little bit.
Yeah, it was just, we've been talking about the pace that he's had this weekend, and I'm not sure if it's the other guys stepped up or what. But we've seen him have that brake issue early on. Did that kind of play in his head? You have to think about the speeds that they're going out there, and you think something could be wrong with your front brake, you're going to back off a little bit. So I don't know if that had something to do with it, or, tracks changing every session guys are talking about. So, did the track change?
Yeah, exactly. And then, one of the remarkable stories here, too, I think, is the fact that Brendan Posh in his first ever Superbike race ends up in the top 5. Yeah, there was a lot of help that happened to get him there, but still in all, he brought it home with a top 5 finish in his first ever Superbike race. So pretty remarkable for Brendan and that performance that he put in. All right, we're going to hear from our podium here in just a minute here at WeatherTech Raceway.
Medallia Superbike coverage is brought to you by Medallia, the pioneer in customer and employee experience. By Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. And by Geico Motorcycle. Visit geico.com to see how easy covering your ride can be.
I don't know why you're so excited about that golf shot, Jason. Here's a look at the results. Jake Gagne over Josh Herrin, PJ Jacobsen, Richie Escalante in 4th, Brandon Posh, Bobby Fong, Hayden Gillum, Corey Alexander, Max Flinders in 9th. Let's get right down to Hannah.
Today's race winner, Jake Gagne. Jake, smooth sailing there after the restart. How was those tires feeling underneath you toward the end of that race?
Yeah, he's Dunlop's working good, trying to be easy on. Yeah, it just sucks to see, man. I mean, a bummer for Cam B and Cam P, man. That's not what I want to see happen, because it would have been a good show today. So I just hope those dudes are all right. And man, again, hats off to Fresh and Lean, Progressive, Attack Performance, Yamaha. These guys are working hard, and this bike's been awesome all weekend. They've just been helping me with my riding and knowing what I got to do. So again, thanks to all the fans for coming out. This place is packed. Thanks for all the homies up on the hill. Yeah.
Congrats, Jake Gagne. Second place today goes to Josh Herrin. Josh, a bit of a lonely race for you out there. Were you welcoming kind of a lonely race, given your physical condition today?
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky there. Wasn't forced to push a whole lot till the end. I was getting nervous there with PJ. It's bummed out for Cam and Cam at the beginning. So I'm glad they're all right. But huge shout out to my entire Warhorse, HSBK Racing, Ducati, New York team. Shout out to OnlyFans, Fresh and Lean, Rye Helmets, Alpine Stars. All the fans for coming out. Thank you guys for all the support, and see you tomorrow.
Josh Herron back up on the podium, and rounding out the podium, PJ Jacobson. PJ, I'm sure you were hoping you had those last couple of laps there to try to reel in Herron. Tell us about it.
Yeah, you know, like Schultz was there the whole time, and then he made a pass on me, and I passed him back here over the hill. And then I was just like, yeah, I gotta, you know, try to hunt Josh down. And I started coming for him, and then unfortunately the red flag came out. So I don't know, you know, Josh is very hard to pass. So we'll see what at the end. But yeah, I'm happy with third, and it's a bummer with Cameron and you know, Cameron Peterson as well, and Escalante. So the race will be way different to tomorrow, and a lot more people in this whole situation.
Strong finish to the day considering how it started for PJ Jacobson, rounding out your podium, guys.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll have more from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, Medallia Superbike Race 1 after this.
Well, PJ talking about how the race tomorrow, considering how things went today with both of the cams going out and then Schultz having the problem and Richie starting at the back, whole different potential dynamic for tomorrow. But we want to expand a little bit more as we're watching those guys as the podiums are going to be unfolding now. The story of Brandon Posh, obviously a two-time Daytona 200 winner, big crash early in the season this year, hurt his back, broke his back quite literally. To my knowledge, he hadn't raced Superbike before, and decides when he gets the opportunity, and you understand why he'd say sure, but makes his return to the sport jumping straight onto a Superbike. You impressed with what he's been able to do this weekend?
Yeah, I have been, because I know the challenge that he's faced against, and there's a lot of things working against him this weekend. For one, all the other guys had off-season testing. They've had half a year to adjust. And then another thing, moving the Superbike is really hard. And I think it's probably harder now than ever with electronics and not having that test to kind of, you know, when you first get the electronics and stuff, if you get some testing, you can kind of work your way into it, kind of figure it out. The crew can really set you down and kind of coach you through it. He shows up on a race weekend the first time he jumps on a Superbike, and, you know, it's just really difficult. Early in the race, his pace was pretty good early in the race. I was watching. He was just a couple tenths off that battle in front, you know, but he couldn't keep it, and I think that's what the learning for him on the Superbike is. You know, that pace these leaders run from start is what they do on the last lap. Yeah. And just figuring it out, and then, you know, coming back from an injury, there's just a lot. So it's a lot to learn. It's a big hurdle, and you know, he's had something to build on now. This is a start. That was a great opportunity, a great schooling lesson for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the highlights here. Cameron Peterson on the Yamaha, great start, going around the outside, then tucked the front, and Cameron Bobby had nowhere to go, Roger.
Yeah, Cam had nowhere to go, and, you know, we heard some guys talking about the temperatures dropping, setting on the grid, windy. That could be easy to do.
Absolutely. The restart, it was Jake Gagne up in that row all by himself, and of course Josh Herron slotting into second. But this battle raged mostly the entire race here. PJ Jacobson on the 99 BMW, Matthew Schultz on the Westby Yamaha, but then this big off, and it was a rough one. You could see it sent him to the pavement. We were worried, but he got up, a little tender, but then gave the corner marshals a thumbs up, and ended up getting the ride in. That was the end of the race at that point, and Jake Gagne adding to his wins.
Yeah, and Jake just kind of does what he did, and just got a good start, put his head down, did his pace. And, you know, I think Jake's smart enough to know that, you know, Cam was the guy that had really good pace. He's out, you know, and just kind of took it easy early when he knew the tires were warm, and then he kind of got going and didn't take any risks that he didn't need.
Okay. And, yeah, that's and you have to have that level of smarts, obviously, to go in and be able to win the 2 championships in a row. You read your competition, and you know what's going on out there, and then you race them accordingly out on the track. And, you know, he's one of the very best at that.
And also he's talked a lot this weekend about his team you know, digging in and pulling a lot more out of him this weekend and forcing him to kind of dig a little bit deeper and bring him out to a new level. And I think that's great for him to be challenged like that. And obviously Jake has accepted that challenge from them and, you know, got another win today and can't wait for tomorrow.
Yeah, he's responded. There's no question about that. And he would say, man, it just gets more and more gnarly, just like I like it. And we have more to go here from Medallia Superbikes at WeatherTech Raceway.
Race 1 highlights, Medallia Superbike race number 1. Jason Pridmore, take us through it.
Well, this is a low light right here. I don't like seeing both Cameron Beaubier and Cam Peterson taken out of the race on the second corner through a little small mistake. You know, it just happens, and you can see a lot of respect from those guys. Made our grid look a little smaller because Escalante had to come from the back, and you see Gagne got out to a quick start with Herron right behind him. PJ Jacobson and Matthew Skoltz would battle, as you heard PJ talking about. He turned it back up underneath Matthew Skoltz down that front straightaway and was able to get back past.
Oof.
Both him and Skoltz were catching up to the back of Herron. PJ Jacobson and Skoltz when this happened with 2 to go. Skoltz was in an impact zone there, Greg, so they brought the red flag out. Happy to see that he's okay. Herron brings him back in. But Gagne today, big points haul.
Yeah, so what did this do for the mix-up? Well, actually, Josh Herron pole vaults himself past Cameron Beaubier in the points. So now it's 39 points to Jake Gagne with half the season in the books. Josh Herron with 142. Beaubier out of this one with 133. PJ Jacobson, 107 ahead of Skoltz, who scores 0 points. So there's a little bit of battle there for 5th place going on in this championship. Jason? So what do you think, race number 1? We still have 2 more of these to do.
Man, we have to have both cams up there, and Richie getting the start from that front row should hopefully make it for 2 really good races tomorrow.
Yeah, I think PJ Jacobson said it best. Tomorrow it's going to be a lot more people in the mix. Well, that'll do it for us. For Hannah and Jason, I'm Greg. We'll see you tomorrow for another one.
Taking a look here at the newly designated Mission